Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Hey, let me start with the Chauncey Garner-Johnson trade, though. I just start with your reaction to it.
What? I mean, well, first of all, I was on the phone with my boss when that happened, so that was kind of funny. But when it happened, I kept seeing all these tweets that just said, wow, I'm so shocked. And in my mind, I was thinking, was no one reading between the lines when Dennis Allen was talking to the media about, I guess, three weeks ago, around August 4th, CJ was having his hold-in, basically, contract standoff. Wasn't doing team drills. I don't think he was doing 7-on-7. And Dennis Allen was asked about it, and who's also then asked about Bradley Roby. And he specifically said, Bradley Roby's doing a great job. He can play inside and outside. And I thought it was just very pointed, saying, hey, we've got a guy right here that we think can play the inside. So if you don't want to participate, I mean, that's on you. And the contract standoff kind of ended a few days later. So, it's possible I'm reading too much into that, but I just thought that was interesting, and I just wasn't fully shocked at the news that happened today.
You did. It was you who asked him the question, right, about the contract being the reason?
Yes, and he didn't answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't expect him to, but you do.
I don't either.
You do assume, as do I, that was the primary motivator. They knew they weren't going to get a deal done, so move him now and get something for him, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. I know there's a lot of talk as to, well, why didn't they wait? They could have gotten the third-round compensatory pick. I mean, when you gamble it's a gamble. You don't know. You don't know that he would have gone out and had a great season. You don't know that he would have gone out and gotten hurt week one, or that the contract wouldn't have become a bigger lingering issue in the locker room. I mean, there's reasons for everything. And that's obviously as much as the team was willing to give for him, and they just wanted to move on from it. Look, CJ's a very talented player, extremely interesting player to cover, and I'm definitely going to miss that aspect of it. But I think they just felt having Roby there, who wasn't going to do much if he didn't have, this role that he's going to have now, I assume. They just felt like they probably had a lot of depth, and they could afford to make the move. But, it definitely, like I said, TJ's a very good player. It definitely is a blow in that respect.
They also have Alontae Taylor. Justin Evans made the team as well. Do you see any of those roles shifting with those guys?
Well, I think they're going to probably try to figure out a way to get Taylor on the field. I think since day one, he's kind of made himself stand out. And he kind of, when he got drafted, I remember the reaction on draft night was, why are they drafting this position when they have enough guys in front of him that he's not going to play? But I thought he kind of quieted those questions pretty quickly. Part of it's his attitude. He's a very confident guy. He knows who he is. And I could see the Saints trying to figure out how to get him on the field. And it's probably the same thing with Roby a little bit. You kind of saw he came back at a reduced contract earlier in the spring because Paulson Adebo performed so well that Roby wasn't needed like he was last year. Now they're going to find a way to utilize him. And I don't quite know how that's all going to play out because Adebo's not practicing right now. So maybe we see Taylor sooner than we think. It's hard to know until next week when they really need these guys to practice.
Kat Terrell's with us, ESPN.com. She's on Twitter at @Kat_Terrell. Okay, so the 53-man roster cuts are in. What is most notable to you?
That they're so light on linebackers. I had some of the linebackers making the roster that didn't, simply for a numbers game. I think that Pete Werner, I'm not completely sold on him playing next week. Even though he was at practice today, I still think that's up in the air. And so after Werner and Demario Davis, it's kind of like, okay, who could go out there and actually perform well? Andrew Dowell made the team because he's very good at special teams, and I know he's probably grown this year as a player, but when they had him have to play defense against Carolina last year, it didn't go well. Same thing with Zach Bond. So they got to figure out who can actually back these guys up besides Caden Ellis, who would take the Sam role. So I think they're going to keep looking.
Kirk Merritt being cut is a surprise because he got so much attention in camp. To what do you attribute that decision?
Well, I thought Kirk Merritt had a great camp. I think when you look at the true numbers of how many players actually get claimed, and fans worry about this every year. Last year, I saw that it was 26 players across the league, and apparently that was on the high side. So it happens less than you think because then the team has to put that player on their 53. And so maybe Kirk Merritt does get claimed, but you have to consider from another team's perspective, the Saints probably value him more than another team would. So I think the Saints think we can probably get him on the practice squad. Now, I mean, we'll find out tomorrow, obviously, but if Merritt had stayed on the roster, it would have been hard for him to have a role on game day. People automatically look at Tre'Quan Smith and say, okay, why does Merritt not make the roster when Tre'Quan Smith presumably does? He's hurt right now. And that's because Tre'Quan has a role on game day as a blocker. So it might not be the most exciting role, but he has a role. So you kind of got to think of it that way. Would this player have actually been active on game day? And if so, would he have contributed? And that being said, I think if the Saints can get him on the practice squad, they're going to breathe a sigh of relief and hope they can develop him.
What about Ian Book?
Back to the claiming thing, I do not think Ian Book showed enough this summer for the Saints to think they were going to lose him. In the years past, when you had Taysom, you had to have a third guy because Taysom was out there putting himself at risk for injury all the time, playing all those other roles. Without Taysom as a quarterback, you can afford to have two quarterbacks and two quarterbacks only on the active roster, and that's really what every single team would like. No one wants to carry three quarterbacks, but some situations like that made it you had to. So it was just a luxury item they didn't need.
So essentially, on a game day, you'd have Jameis, you'll have Andy Dalton, and then your emergency quarterback would be Taysom Hill. Is that what you would assume?
Probably. I mean, I guess it could be Kamara, but at this point, if Taysom's not a full-time quarterback, you're right. Like, you would assume it would be Taysom. You know, it's so weird. Teams never, ever want to reveal who their emergency quarterback is, and I really don't understand why, because theoretically, they're never going to play, and if they do, some disaster happens.
Wasn't that the thing last year? Because there was a game where Peyton acknowledged that it might have been the Miami game, maybe, where Kamara would have been the emergency quarterback if they needed.
I think so.
Yeah, that's so.
I think so. But the funny thing is, because like COVID has totally ruined like the mystique of the emergency quarterback. Like we thought for years, oh my gosh, it would be so much fun to have to watch this emergency quarterback come out and play and see how he does. And then we actually had to see it, and it was horrible. And not just the Saints, it's for everybody. So now no one ever wants to see that again. That's what happened. It's not fun to watch. It's actually really boring.
Who's the practice squad receiver from the Broncos who played against the Saints?
That's exactly what I was thinking of. That poor guy.
Oh.
He did his best. But, I mean, what are you going to do?
You sound like such a mom. The poor guy, he did his best.
He did. I probably shouldn't be saying that about, like, NFL players, that they all get compensated, pretty well to be saying they did their best. But in that situation, that is not what that guy signed up for.
Kat Terrell's with us. Hey, before you go, you mentioned they're light on linebackers. I think it's safe to say they need a rotational lineman. They need help at tackle. What do you suggest they do? What do you think they'll do?
They do, and I think that they're gonna keep looking. There is an interesting guy that used to be with the Saints that just got cut by the Steelers. So I kind of wonder if they would go try to get John LeBlue back, because he actually, once the Saints cut him a few years ago, I thought he did very well with the Steelers, and he can play a couple of positions. So, I mean, that's a guy, local kid, went to Tulane. The other one, I wonder if sometimes they do this. Sometimes they cut players early to try to get them under the radar. I kind of wonder if they would try to bring Derek Kelly back. Not sure. He was one of those Sunday cuts. I mean, your mind kind of assumes, okay, that was just the easiest cut, but it's not always that way. So we'll kind of see what they do in the next 2 days. But you're right; they need to keep looking at linemen, especially with Penning potentially going on short-term IR.
A follower on Twitter at @_Terrell. Reader stuff at ESPN.com. Saints are down to 53, and like we always say, Kat, it's the first 53 because it will change tomorrow, almost certainly. So we'll be following along. Appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.